What's up everyone, David here, and we are here today for a very special video. As you've seen by the title, there's a bunch of guests, collaboration video, and I'm super excited to have those people in. Most of them are fellow Megaten Content Creators that I've been following for a while and that have been inspirations for me to become as well a YouTuber. So thanks to them and thanks for the collaboration. I think you guys will like this video. This is a video where everyone will answer two simple questions: how they got into Shin Megami Tensei, so they'll tell their stories, and they'll also say which game in the series is their favorite and why. So I'll give the ball to the first in line.
Alright, let me set the scene. It was 2012 and I was around 15. I was a pretty big gamer, but outside of mainstream stuff like Nintendo, I mostly stuck to Western games. Then one day, on the way home from school, I went into Sex to browse the games. Now if you're not British, that might sound a little bit weird, but basically we've got this pre-owned game shop called CEX, but they're very clear in the marketing that it should be pronounced as Sex. I saw Persona 4 on the shelf for around £10, and I remembered I'd seen it in a meme earlier that day, so I bought it. Yes, I got into Shin Megami Tensei thanks to sex and a bad meme. I then proceeded to forget about it for a good few months, but once I did get round to playing it, there was no stopping me. The day I finished Persona 4, I went on to Persona 3 on the PSP, and then Persona 1, Persona 2, and all the various spin-offs almost immediately afterwards. Once I exhausted all of Persona, I began to research the rest of Megami Tensei, and this is what really hooked me. You see, I'm a bit obsessed with collecting knowledge. It's why I made the video series on the history of SMT. And with Megami Tensei there was just so much to it. So many different types of games and stories, but all within their own right, having better world building and story than 90% of all other games I'd played. Old RPGs didn't scare me, so I bit the bullet and went straight into Kyoyaku Megami Tensei, before moving on to the other SNES games. However, there's still plenty I've not yet played. Raido Kuzunoha, for example, is a bitch to get hold of in PAL regions. I love different areas of Megaten for different reasons. With Persona, I was attracted to the level of character interaction in an RPG. In other areas, I've loved seeing how mythological figures have been translated into a completely different setting. If I were to sum up the appeal of SMT as a whole to me, it would be connected but varied. Now my favourite game? Well, P5R would be such a boring choice, but its gameplay loop was so satisfying and its final boss was leagues better than the original. However, to avoid going with the boring choice, I'm going to pick Digital Devil Saga, thanks to its amazing story.
My name's KatanaRikku, and I've been playing games in the Megami Tensei franchise for years now. However, my first entry was actually not in the main series, but Persona 4 Golden for the PS Vita. As my first experience with SMT, the themes of the game and the characters really stuck with me even till this day. As a matter of fact, the characters are among my favorites in any game I've played, and I like them better than the characters in the next game in the franchise that I played, Persona 5. While the gameplay, story, and world are a huge step up over Persona 4 in my opinion, the characters didn't stick with me as much as they did in Persona 4. This isn't a jab at the cast though, as I still like them a lot. One of my favorite things about these games is the music though, composed by the GOAT himself, Shoji Meguro. The music is so uplifting and great, so imagine my surprise when I played a bit of SMT Nocturne to find out that the style is completely different. It just shows you how great of a composer Shoji Meguro is and his range. Nocturne has some of the best music I've ever heard in any game, Fierce Battle and Tokyo Conceptions being standouts in my opinion. Now I didn't play much of Nocturne and I do plan to return to it eventually, but honestly my time has been completely dominated by another game in the SMT franchise, Shin Megami Tensei 4. This year I grabbed the 2DS XL, which allowed me to finally get into SMT 4, a game I've been eyeing for a while now before buying it. This is the game that I should have played a long time ago. A story and characters that instantly grabbed my attention, along with amazing music composed by Ryota Kozuka, and the interesting setting of the Eastern Kingdom of Mikado, all helped to immerse myself in this world. I'm currently sitting at 40 hours, and a lot of that time has been spent just exploring the world, fusing new demons, and clearing domains. There's so much to do in this game, and the world feels so huge and alive, so it should come as no surprise that this is in my top 5 JRPGs of all time. I still need some time to play more games in the series, and as a matter of fact, I plan to pick up Apocalypse afterwards and then go on to play Double Survivor. Turns out the 3DS is one of the best purchases I've made in a long time, seeing the amount of SMT games that are available on it. So that's my thoughts on the franchise. I like Persona, and I've been enjoying my time with the mainline series after all these years of missing out. And I gotta say, if SMT 5 really ends up being the best parts of what I enjoyed from SMT 4, this might possibly be my favorite game of all time. I hesitate to pick my favorite game in this series because SMT4 was my first time really getting into the games, but when I get around to playing 4 Apocalypse and a couple more titles like Devil Survivor or Strange Journey, I'll have a definitive answer. As of now, all I can say is SMT4 is great and I'm looking forward to playing more games in the franchise.
Hey, how's it going, everybody? Before we start, I'd like to thank Davidcast JRPGs for setting up this project and for having me on. I'm really glad to be here. I'd also like to give a warm welcome to anyone that's seeing my face for the very first time. Hi, I'm Krischenn. I have a fairly Megaten focused YouTube channel with stories, discussions, and I'm working on some skit stuff in the future. You might like that, check me out if you want, but today, I'm here to talk about what first got me into Shin Megami Tensei. And in fact, to do that, we'd have to go all the way back to 2013, where this journey first started. I was introduced to the series via Persona 3 Portable by a friend of mine, and I was absolutely captivated by the relatable cast of characters and the way that they interacted with one another throughout the game. I was introduced to the strategy of these games with Persona 3's easy to understand battle system, and I remember completely leaving my system on for long periods of time just to listen to that marvelously crafted soundtrack. I wasn't expecting the soundtracks in these games to always be so good, but let's just say I haven't found a series that can top the music in the Megami Tensei franchise. With the fun and customized social link experience, it was like I was playing 2 games at once, and boy was I hooked. As much as I enjoyed playing Persona 3 Portable on the PC emulator, the PSP, the Vita, and I think the Android emulator like 5 times, I finally took notice of Shin Megami Tensei when I saw a playthrough of Nocturne, Shin Megami Tensei 3, being done by a content creator known as Sir Lionheart. And something prompted me to play that game. Coming off the lighter tones of the Persona games, I was taken back by the deep and compelling storylines, the twisted lore, tackling mythology, tackling religion, and tackling the freedom to choose different endings using the alignment system, which was really new to me at the time. After finding out about Nocturne, I looked up other games in the franchise and I found Digital Devil Saga, the Soul Hackers games, and Devil Summoner. And then there was the PC MMO, Imagine Online, which all had a part in making me a now excited, solidified RPG fanatic. I gravitated more towards the dark and serious tones of the Shin Megami Tensei franchise, and Nocturne specifically was the bug that I needed to become an SMT lover. There are several games in this franchise that offer great replay value, but one game that stands out to me that's dear to my heart is Shin Megami Tensei 4. I ran through this game with one of my closest friends, and me and him played that game for days, weeks, I think even a month on end, completely immersed in the story. SMT4 is one of those games that changed the series forever. Building an atmosphere that fit every single dungeon of the game, developing a healthy cast of characters that you either grow to love or you grow to hate, delivering completely on a story that left me with chills down my spine, and introducing new gameplay mechanics that made this game one of the most robust and easily accessible games in the series, hands down. Borrowing from one of my earlier statements about the music in these games, yo! I'd like to mention that I had only played Shin Megami Tensei 4 in late 2017, and I'd go as far as to say that this game was way ahead of its time. If you're new to the Megami Tensei franchise, or you've played the Persona games and you're looking for a fresh transition, well, you just got lucky. Megami Tensei is an ever-growing franchise, but with Shin Megami Tensei 5 coming out soon, it's no better time to become a part of this community of players.
Hey guys, it's Gab, and I'm gonna tell you how I got into Persona/Megaten as a whole. So that started off with getting onto a JRPG podcast with my good friend Shadow Elite HD. He had always raved about Persona and being excited about Persona 5, and of course when Persona 5 came out, I decided to pick it up. Now, I played it for a little while and then dropped it for a few months. Eventually I went back to it though, and fell in love with it from there. And from that game, I decided to go backwards, and I played 4 on the PS2, and then I bought 3 on the PS2, and then I bought other games in the series, and now I actually own pretty much all the games from PS2 to now, which is pretty cute. And I mean, that also led to me collecting a whole bunch of Megaten/Persona merch. I have clothing, figures, a whole bunch of cool things, and I absolutely love it. My favorite game in the series so far has to be Shin Megami Tensei 4. There was something about the whole story that just really spoke to me, and I really loved the fact that it was like early Japan, where you then travel with your friends, which each friend character is really great actually. The cast I had no problems with in this game. The soundtrack was also one of my favorites in all of the Megaten series. The battle theme especially was so good. I consider that a banger. For it being an early 3DS title, I think it went under the rug for a lot of people, and I feel like we should all give it a chance because it's a really great game.
Hey David, thank you so much for inviting me again for another video here. It's cool to do this. And I guess this week you're talking about Shin Megami Tensei and how I got into the series. It's actually pretty cool to talk about this. So my experience with Shin Megami Tensei, as a lot of people, started with Persona. But my true first mainline game was Nocturne. So I had just finished Persona 3 FES. And I was just kind of in the mood for more SMT games, so more RPGs and kind of stuff, and I found a copy which I borrowed from somebody else to play Nocturne, and I mean it's just so interesting to see how going from Persona, which has a completely different combat system, to Nocturne was awesome. Like, it was such a good experience with the game. I fell in love with the series right then and there. I think that Shin Megami Tensei kind of won over my heart in a kind of aspect. Like, I love the way that how dark and how different it is, because even if you put in context within Persona 3 and Nocturne, there is a significant difference on how everything interacts, whether it's the character development or the storytelling or anything. Is super different. Toning incredibly is just so unique, and I think ever since that moment when I played Nocturne, I don't think I ever saw RPGs in the same way. I wasn't really into RPGs at that time in my life, but I think after playing Nocturne and Persona, I was kind of like, I need more of this. I just went into this rabbit hole, just finding everything that cool about SMT, about Persona, about like all these other games that I started playing, and I was like, this is a cool experience. I really don't know how I didn't know about these games earlier. Obviously, that was when right before Persona 4 came out, so it wasn't that, like, it was a long time ago at this point, but it really did just give me such a big impact in that. Some of my favorite SMT games, since you asked me that as well, while I love Nocturne, which is I guess we'll say like my top SMT game, I really like SMT4 as well. I think that it went in a completely different direction for their SMT games, and I still really like the way that they did it. It just really worked well for me. I also, one of my other two games, and I'll just bring a couple here. I love Shin Megami Tensei Devil Survivor. I think that is a really good series. In fact, I feel like this is one of the best spin-off series that they have done in quite some time. I love the combat. I think it's super unique. The storytelling is fantastic. The artwork is beautiful. I just love so many different stuff about which when I started playing the game, I was like, how is this game not bigger than Persona? How is it not as big as Persona? Because I feel like it has some of those same elements, but it does it in such a different kind of way that I was like, this game needs to be played. Like, I don't know how people are not playing this game and talking about it. I will go crazy over this game. Like, it's so good. I can't wait for us to get another one, hopefully someday. That'll be cool. Anyway, I think I'm going on tangent at this point. My other series is Devil Summoner. They were Devil Summoner, yeah. Raido Kazoku games on the PlayStation 2. I love them. I love the hack and slash type. I love the aesthetic of the 1920s. I think it is one of the coolest aspects of SMT, which is so different from everything else, but it really makes sense within the series and everything. I just love the style. There's a style to it. Like, if you talk about many different SMT games, Devil Summoner has like its own specific style, and it owns it so well. It's really legitimately one of my favorite games. Anyway, that is pretty much it here, because I'm going off tangent here. Thank you for having me in.
So back in like May 2013, I was really wanting to find something new to play on my 3DS, so I did a little bit of looking around. I eventually came across this game called Shin Megami Tensei Devil Survivor Overclocked, and it was this big, long, fully voiced tactical RPG for my 3DS, and I was interested. I can't really remember exactly how I'd first heard of it, but I had known about the game for a bit, even before I started looking into it. Particularly the Shin Megami Tensei part of the title. I found I have this weird trend or tendency or whatever, where things I now love were things I really can't tell you how I first heard of them. They just kind of always existed as far as I can remember. Like, for example, I don't know how I first heard of Devil May Cry, but I sure as hell can tell you how I got into it.
After I finished my junior year of high school, I picked up Overclocked and I just loved it. I adored it. The game was hard, but the story, characters, and gameplay, and the demon designs were just so fun and interesting I kept going. From there I started doing research into the rest of the series and finding out as much as I could. As some of you might remember, Shin Megami Tensei 4 released a little over a month after I first picked up Overclock. In fact, not only was it releasing shortly after I picked up my first entry, but it was also releasing on my birthday. My 17th birthday. AKA the day in which I could finally purchase M-rated games by myself without any kind of parent with me. And guess what game was rated M and I was super hyped for? I played so much of SMT4, I had gotten all 4 endings in exactly 1 month. And from there, I immediately jumped on playing the rest of the games of the series. Which I still haven't played all of them, I really need to get on that. I have a special connection with SMT4 for a number of reasons. Even if it's not the most creative answer, I gotta go with Nocturne. The art direction, music, the atmosphere, the world, everything about it is just amazing to me. I'll admit that the gameplay is fairly slow and at times kind of unfair compared to modern entries, but I feel it still works with the pacing of the game. My number 2 would definitely be Devil Survivor Overclocked. It's just the perfect balance between like the personality of Persona and the themes of Mainline, mixed in with its own unique take on tactical RPGs.
So, my first ever experience with the Megami Tensei franchise was all the way back in 2011 when I followed Machinima and I saw that 2 Best Friends Play uploaded a video on Persona 4. So I clicked on the video, I watched it, and I thought, this game looks cool, but it was only available on PS2, and I only had a PS3, which wasn't backwards compatible. So I just brushed it off and went back to playing Call of Duty Black Ops. However, fast forward a year later, that's when I'm at the peak of my weeboo phase, and I'm just starting to get into anime and JRPGs and all that. And then I'm going to the PlayStation Store to download Final Fantasy VI, but then I see an advertisement for the recently released Persona 3 FES, and then I remembered everything about that video I saw. So I spent my $10 on the game, I downloaded it, I played it, and I was immediately hooked. Not only because of the dating sim and anime aesthetic, but also because of the way it handled mythology, the gripping story, the interesting characters, and most of all, the addicting combat. Not long after, I discovered the Megami Tensei Wiki, through which I found out that Persona is only a very small part of an even bigger franchise called Megami Tensei. There was the mainline series, the Digital Devil Saga series, the Devil Summoner series, the Devil Survivor series, and it was all just very interesting to me. After I started playing more of the Megami Tensei games, that is when I became cemented as a hardcore Megami Tensei fan, and I have never looked back since. If I were to pick a favorite Megami Tensei game, it would definitely have to be Devil Survivor 1. The combat is strategic, fast-paced, and fun, and the story is one of the most engaging of any JRPG I've ever played. On top of it, it just has great characters, great music, and really, it just nails everything in every department.
Okay, so it's my turn now, so I'm going to tell you guys my story. First, how I got into Shin Megami Tensei. Well, you see, my story is pretty short. As most of the guys that went before me, I was introduced to Shin Megami Tensei because of Persona. When I was younger, I had a PSP. My parents bought me a PSP since I was so addicted to the Nintendo DS. They were like, okay, he likes portable play, we'll give him a PSP for Christmas. I got my PSP, and I was not even an RPG fan at that time. I was playing a bunch of, GTA games and Ratchet & Clank, stuff like that. But then I went to the shop one day with my mom, and I saw a copy of the original Persona game, Shin Megami Tensei Persona, and you can spot the game right here on the shelf. This is still my original copy. I bought that game. I adored it. I played it through the whole game. It was my first RPG, but I played through the whole thing. Then started to play 3, and then 4 when it released, picked it up day 1, etc. So I really liked my experience with the Persona franchise, and it's only a few years later that I got introduced to Shin Megami Tensei. I went to my local game store that I always go to, and I was speaking with a friend that works there, and she was talking to me, and she told me that if I already knew Persona, that I might like another series called Shin Megami Tensei. and she told me that a game just came out a few months ago, and this particular game, you might have heard of it, it's called Shin Megami Tensei 4. I decided to pick it up and I fell in love. I really adored the story, the characters. I saw some familiar faces, some demons that I saw in Persona, saw them back here. I also had the demon negotiation that was in the first Persona game, liked it. And then the story was different, did multiple endings, all of that. And then I started to watch YouTube videos about SMT, and I was introduced to other games in the franchise, such as the Digital Devil Saga games that I really liked. And I've recently completed other games such as Devil Summoner Soul Hackers and SMT Devil Survivor as well, which brings me to talk about my favorite game, and it was SMT4 for a long time, but I recently finished Devil Survivor overclocked on my 3DS, and this game is such a masterpiece. It's a mix between tactical RPG and classic SMT battles. The story was really good, the characters were all really attractive, the soundtrack all the tracks are bangers. For me, it's really the combat system that stood out in this game. It's like the best thing that I adored from it. The fact that you gotta think about your placements for your characters, but you also gotta think about which demons you gotta use and which spells are you gonna use. All of that, it was so different and I adored it. So this is my story with Megaten, guys. I still have a bunch of games that I haven't played. I'm not a veteran like a bunch of people that went before me, but I adore this series and I definitely plan on checking out more of the games that I haven't played yet. If you guys if you liked this video, if you want more content on anything Shin Megami Tensei, Atlus, or Persona, check out the guys down in the description below. They make awesome Megaten content, and for myself, I post twice a week, every Tuesday and Thursday at 12 Eastern Time, anything about JRPGs, but mostly Atlus-centered stuff. Thank you so much, guys, for watching this video. I hope you liked it, and we'll see you guys in another video.